So, what's your name and where are you from and how long have you been an Ahmadi Muslim?
My name is Mohammed Sarroukh. I am from Morocco by birth, but I live in Greenwich in London. I've been an Ahmadi for about 16 years now.
So tell us the long story of your journey to Islam Ahmadiyya.
So about 16 years ago, I owned a furniture store in southwest London, and I had regular conversations with a Christian friend of mine. We were quite close. He was a good friend of mine, and it was just a general chat about the similarities and differences between Christianity and Islam, and we enjoy these conversations on a regular basis. And on a particular day, a gentleman walked past. He was an Ahmadi, but I didn't know what that was at the time, and asked to join the conversation. Of course, we welcomed him, and the discussion progressed, and it got to a point where the Christian friend of mine sort of said, you know what, we'll just end it here, and we'll find out the truth when Jesus returns. And the Ahmadi friend who just joined us said, that's the problem, brother. He's already returned. And we sort of laughed and joked, and everyone walked off. But the Ahmadi friend who joined us turned around to me and looked like he was quite serious about that statement. And I didn't think it was nothing I'd heard of before. So I challenged him about it. I said, his name was Ibrahim. I said, Ibrahim, you shouldn't say things like that. That's not true. And we shouldn't mock each other. And he said, no, I'm not mocking at all. On the contrary, I'm being quite respectful, and I mean it. I really do mean that the second coming of Jesus has taken place. And I asked him to explain, and he went into it and told me that he was an Ahmadi Muslim, and the prophecy of the second coming of Jesus ﷺ has happened. And I basically asked him to elaborate a bit more on what that meant. And I guess my relationship with that gentleman, Ibrahim, then started from there. And we're still friends today, because about 2 years later, after reading a number of books and being taken by the beauty of this version of Islam, I became an Ahmadi officially 2 years after meeting him. So that's the story.
Well, we sort of need a little bit of help.
I guess I fell in love with what Ibrahim was telling me about Ahmadiyyat Islam. I fell in love with the Promised Messiah's alayhi salatu salam's writings. I read books like The Philosophy of Teachings of Islam, and I read a few other books. But I fell in love quite earlier on with Islam Ahmadiyyat, and I'd started describing myself as an Ahmadi Muslim before even knowing what a bay'ah was, before knowing what the structure of the Jamaat is. And a few many months later, Ibrahim would visit me regularly at the store I had, and we were talking, and I said, Ibrahim, you can stop trying to convince me of the Promised Messiah's truth. I've already described myself to others as an Ahmadi Muslim. I believe the Promised Messiah, I accept that, and I consider myself an Ahmadi Muslim. At that point, Ibrahim explained to me that there was such a thing as the bay'ah, the plea of allegiance to the Khilafah, which I then took on board. I immediately said, well, I'd like to know what this bay'ah looks like. I'd like to participate in that, and I'd like to be included fully as an Ahmadi in whatever sense of the word that meant, beyond accepting the Promised Messiah alayhi salatu salam. So we went on from there, and I accepted those conditions of the bay'ah from then on.
In short, what is an Ahmadi Muslim?
An Ahmadi Muslim is someone who accepts the truth of the promised Messiah, who we accept as Hadrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, alayhi salatu salam. We believe he is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the second coming of Jesus, alayhi salatu salam, and the fulfillment of Imam Mahdi. So that's and of course his teachings or elaborations of various angles of various thoughts of Islamic thoughts in general, I guess.
How has becoming an Ahmadi Muslim changed your life? And just try to avoid the word Jamaat. Let's try to just for English people. So there's many English words.
I guess it's changed my life because I've got a different kind of relationship with Allah. I was brought up as a Sunni Muslim, and I think sometimes it's easier to highlight why we should fear Allah and drum that into people quite early on in their life. But often I think we forget to explain why we should also fall in love with Allah and not just fear Him. And what Ahmadiyyat Islam has done for me is it's made me fall in love with Allah, which is different from fearing Him. I guess I'm in love with Allah. That's my difference.
Practically, how has it changed your life?
I think, again, for me, I think being brought up of North African origins in Morocco, I think sometimes we're overly conscious of political positions held here and there, and wanting perhaps to hold strong views about political stances by various organizations or countries and so on, and that tends to be almost a natural attraction for some people. And I think as an Ahmadi Muslim we learn to back away a little bit from those frustrations and things like that. And I think if you really want to get into politics, then maybe go and do a degree in law, maybe join a political party, and maybe take action in that direction, rather than just build up a whole load of frustration and anger towards situations and stances and so on. So I guess practically what it's done for me is it's allowed me to separate the injustices we see in the world and the need to want to side with one or the other at all times, at every developing event, and separate all that from the love of Allah and the relationship we have, or I have as an individual, between me and Allah. They're something completely different. When I fall in love with Allah, what I experience is wanting to help humanity for the sake of humanity in one end of the spectrum of what's going on in humanity. Whether we've got starving people, we've got humanitarian situations developing in one part of the world, or whether you want to get into humanity and actually be involved in politics, but choosing your direction specifically and pursuing it specifically to what you want to be involved with. So I guess the practical differences is a clarity of thought, and guess what you then want to do with that clarity of thought and what direction you want to go into helping people.
How did your friends and family react to you becoming an Ahmadi Muslim?
So I guess as a married person, I have two groups of families: my birth family, my parents, my siblings, and that's also of my wife and her parents and siblings. So unfortunately, to date, my family, my parents and some of my siblings haven't quite understood this yet. Two of my brothers have, and they have accepted it, alhamdulillah. My wife accepted this about 6 months after myself, and the good news is I guess all her family accepted it, from her parents all her sisters, all their husbands, one of her sister's husband's mother. So a bit of a Moroccan community in Morocco, North Morocco actually, Tangiers and Larach. There's quite a few Ahmadis there that are all related to us. So that's a great blessing upon us. So that's the reaction.
How do you fall in love with God?
It's quite easy, actually. You fall in love with Allah by understanding His attributes. There are 99 attributes that we know of in this world, I guess. And, you know, looking at those attributes, understanding the differences between Rahman and Rahim is nothing but... yeah, I guess, you know, reading the Prophet ﷺ's literature on the differences between Rahman and Rahim, you can't help but fall in love. And I guess I'm looking back when I was... when I was reading the elaboration of those, the Rahman is he who grants you things before you even realize you need them. So, for example, when we look at a baby, the baby didn't even know it needs a mother and never even asked. So, but that mother was placed there at the right time, in the right conditions to provide all the necessary care for that young baby's development. So that's what Ar-Rahman is in a nutshell, the granting of mercies before we even know we need those mercies and before we even ask for those mercies. And I guess Rahim is as that baby is growing up and linking their hunger with crying, I guess a sense of crying, I guess they're praying really, they're asking for to be fed, and as they get older they're asking for a lot more support, they're asking for a lot more individual attention, and I guess the asking is responded to by the Rahim in this case. So characteristics of Allah, attributes of Allah such as Rahman and Rahim can't do anything but send you deeply in love with Allah when you look at your own journey that got you to where you are today, a fully operational human being.
And finally, if somebody is searching for the truth, what advice do you have for them?
I give the same advice which was given to me by my friend Ibrahim. Ibrahim Ahmed Noonan is his full name actually. He advised me when I was in search of the truth in my journey. He said, look, Muhammad, I can give you all the books you can read, and I can talk in such a convincing way perhaps, but the truth, you get to that by praying to Allah, and if you pray to Allah, if you pray to God and ask Him to show you the truth, then rest assured no one will answer that prayer except Allah Himself. No one will answer that prayer except Allah. So therefore my advice is, if you are on a journey, then humble yourself, put your face down and understand your position in the universe, which is almost insignificant, and pray to Allah with that in mind, begging for His guidance, and rest assured that only He will answer you.